Every night, thousands of gallons of diesel fuel are being wasted pointlessly at rest stops around the world. Huge engines roar for 8 hours straight, while the trucks sit idle. If you're a business owner, you'd call this a financial disaster. If you're an environmentalist, you'd call it destruction. But for drivers, letting the engine idle overnight isn't a waste of money. It's a necessary investment. Conversely, turning it off could cost them a lot of money, or worse, leave them stranded. Why do truck drivers let their engines run all night? The answer is much more interesting than you might think. To understand why the engine is still running, we first need to completely change our perspective on the truck itself. For most people, a car is simply a tool for getting from point A to point B. But for a long-haul truck driver, that cabin is a multi-purpose fortress. It's an office by day and a private residence by night, often equipped with a bed, refrigerator, and even a microwave. By federal law, drivers are required to take a 10-hour rest period after each shift. This means that when that massive truck pulls into a depot, the driver isn't just parking, they're actually going home. They live, eat, and sleep inside that steel box. When the space serves as both a heavy-duty machine and their primary living space, the decision to turn off the engine is no longer a simple technical choice. To truly grasp the situation, look under the hood. Unlike gasoline engines in personal vehicles, diesel engines don't use spark plugs. Instead, they rely on extremely high compression pressure to ignite the fuel. Therefore, when the engine stops at low temperatures, the engine oil becomes thick and sluggish, unable to lubricate the critical components immediately upon starting. Imagine a cold start as a high-intensity workout for a body that hasn't warmed up. Engineers often estimate that a single cold start can cause mechanical wear equivalent to driving hundreds of miles on the highway. For a driver, keeping the engine running isn't just about convenience. It's about protecting the lifespan of a machine worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. But even if we ignore the technical pressures, there's another, far more personal reason. In many parts of North America, temperatures during a winter night can plummet to a bone-chilling -20 degrees Fahrenheit. If a driver turns off the engine in these extreme conditions, the consequences are immediate and life-threatening. Without the engine's heat, the cabin becomes an icebox within minutes. Furthermore, diesel fuel itself can gel or freeze in such bitter cold, meaning the truck might not start again in the morning, leaving the driver stranded in a remote, freezing wasteland. At this point, keeping the engine running is no longer about comfort or luxury. It is a vital lifeline. It is the only thing standing between a safe night's sleep and a potential disaster. And in many cases, this constant roar of the engine is directly linked to the driver's long-term health. For most long-haul drivers, a device called a CPAP machine is an indispensable part of their nightly routine. This medical equipment, used to treat sleep apnea, requires a constant and reliable source of electricity to function throughout the night. If the main engine is shut down and the auxiliary batteries fail, the CPAP machine stops. For the driver, this isn't just an inconvenience. It leads to severe sleep deprivation, chronic fatigue, and a dramatic drop in daytime alertness. When a driver is exhausted, the 80,000-pound vehicle they command becomes a ticking time bomb on the highway. Therefore, leaving the engine running is a vital safety measure that protects both the driver's health and every other family sharing the road. But this truck isn't just carrying a human being. It is also carrying something far more valuable to the rest of the world. Beyond the driver's comfort, Many trucks are carrying a responsibility that affects millions of households. We are talking about reefer trucks, mobile refrigerators designed to transport perishable goods across vast distances. These vehicles carry everything from the fresh bananas in your local grocery store to life-saving vaccines that require precise temperature control. For these sensitive cargoes, even a slight fluctuation in heat can lead to a total loss, costing thousands of dollars in damages and wasting precious resources. The specialized cooling units on these trailers often draw power directly from the main engine or a dedicated diesel generator. To shut down the engine for the night would be to cut the lifeline of the cold chain. And the surprising part is, even the strict hand of the law has to remain flexible when it comes to this reality. In many U.S. states, strict anti-idling laws are in place to reduce carbon emissions and noise pollution. On paper, a driver could face heavy fines for leaving their engine running for more than a few minutes. However, the legal system often has to blink when faced with the harsh reality of long-haul trucking. Most jurisdictions provide critical exemptions that allow idling under specific circumstances. If the outdoor temperature drops below freezing or climbs above a certain threshold, the law steps aside for human safety. The same flexibility applies when a driver is transporting temperature-sensitive medical supplies or using essential life support equipment like a CPAP machine. But this habit doesn't just stem from modern needs. It is a tradition that has existed for a very long time. Let's go back to the 1940s, a time when long-distance trucking was a brutal test of endurance. Back then, sleeping cabins didn't exist. Drivers often slept in their driver's seats or in roadside motels if they were lucky. The landscape changed in the 1950s with the introduction of the federal highway system, propelling trucks across vast and desolate distances. By the 1960s, trucks finally incorporated sleeping compartments, but the technology was still very rudimentary. Throughout those decades, cold starts in winter were a driver's worst nightmare. Sometimes you even had to drain the engine oil and bring it inside to keep warm. In that context, leaving the engine running all night wasn't an option. It was the most sophisticated survival tactic of the time. It ensures that both the driver and the machine are ready to set off at dawn. And even as technology has advanced, this deeply ingrained habit persists. If idling causes so many problems, why hasn't modern technology solved it yet? The answer lies in a device called an APU. Imagine an APU as a small auxiliary engine mounted on the side of a truck. Its sole purpose is to provide air conditioning and power to the cabin without having to power the massive main engine. The advantage of an APU is that it consumes only a fraction of the fuel and significantly reduces mechanical wear and tear. However, there's a major hurdle: the cost. Installing a high-quality APU can cost over $10,000. For many independent truck owners, this is a huge upfront investment that takes years to recoup. And that's where the answer to our original question becomes clearer than ever. Idling is a calculated sacrifice, a trade-off between environmental concerns and the desperate need to keep the global supply chain afloat. It's the sound of a driver struggling to survive the long night so they can keep the world moving the next day. In the world of long-haul transport, some things are simply too important to ever be turned off. Hit that subscribe button and join our community of curious minds. Together, we'll continue to peel back the layers of the everyday world, one explanation at a time. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next discovery.